Hi guys, it's Eero here, and in this video you're going to learn the difference between skill and strength training. You know, going back to the latest video that I posted about the problem with calisthenics, I just like to mention that calisthenics is what I did primarily in my early 20s, and I loved it, and I always did skill training. That was my major focus when I did calisthenics. I was always trying to get the body levers, the human flex, the muscle ups. It was such a great task to try to reach those goals. And even later, when I went on to weightlifting, this approach never really changed. Even in weightlifting, I was always trying to get the new record, the heavier weights, and do it this way. Yeah, and this was obviously because I thought that this is, partly this is how you get strong. This is how you really become strong, and that's that. But the fact is that the majority of the people will not really become superheroes this way, and that's just the way it happens to be. And so talking about skills is like, for many people, I realize it's like questioning their manhood. This is not really often doesn't concern women. But the last video, it got a lot of heat and some aggression as well, and I can understand that. But like, this just basically proves my point, which is, the obsession with the skills. Like saying that, okay, you can't do a planche, you can't talk about these things. Or you can do this and that, and you have no word in what you're saying. And I think this is such a huge problem, and people are really left thinking that if you can't get the skill, there's no way for you to really become strong. And most people who go on this sort of skill obsession, prioritize skills, they will give up or face an injury or move on to something else. So what I want to do, I just want to help. Like, I want to give you this information so that you don't repeat the mistakes that I did in my past. And really, I'm trying to keep this video fairly short, so please go check the article from the description, and there's a lot more information there so you don't miss anything. And after this video, you will really realize the difference here, and after you realize that, you can leave all the ego training behind and focus on true strengthening and really kind of save yourself from years of mostly wasted training. So what is skill training anyway? So as I explained at the start, when you're trying to do the hardest possible exercises, the different calisthenic skills, when you're trying to force yourself into a middle split, you're usually training for skill. When you're trying to do the heaviest lifts, you're training for the skill. So as you can see, this is no more just about calisthenics. This is about the general fitness, weightlifting, powerlifting, even movement training in many cases. So you do your heavy bench presses, you're trying to get the max number of dips, your many handstand movements that you're trying to do, handstand push-ups, you're doing a skill training. And in this case, it's always the external criteria is kind of the measurement of your success. So it's either the highest number of repetitions, it's the number of the weight, or it's the certain form of your skill progression. And this way you determine whether you're like strong or you made it well. So what really causes the confusion here is obviously that these people who do these skills, they are pretty strong. They have strength, right? And they usually look strong too. And skill training, you're going to notice you're going to build some strength. Usually poorly, but you will build strength, certainly. Right. So, okay, in the start, you will progress very quickly. I progressed when I was doing this skill training really quickly, and I know this like even muscle against and such. Over time, what will happen, however, is that this is not sustainable. Over time, this will lead to many problems, imbalances. If you're truly prioritizing these skills and only the skills and doing like minimal amount of necessary work, as many people are doing, you will end up facing problems. You will plateau, and oftentimes it will just go worse a little by little over time. So why does this happen? But first of all, when you're doing always the hardest possible thing for yourself, you are forced to really pretty much use just the major movers, the biggest muscle groups in your body to complete the task. And the other thing is that because it's so hard, you have really no possibility but to do it in just one form. So you always fall into the same pattern of movement when you're doing these exercises. So what happens as a result is there's incredible amount of muscles that will never really get trained. So there's going to be so many weak areas if you just focus on this bigger skill. So then people come and they say, oh, well, what if I do 20 different skills? Then I'm practicing many areas in my body. Well, there's two things. First of all, the movement that happens with the skill is not the same as pure movement or pure articulation of your joints. And the second thing is that there's like 1,000 different articulations in your body that you can be training. So doing even 10 to 20 skills is not going to just be enough. So there's always exceptions. There's always examples of people who do these things sort of well. But the exception is not the rule, and in most cases this never happens. Let's say you do those heavy lifting, and you're like I just lift with heavy form. I just lift heavy with good form. If you truly lifted with the standards that I have basically regarding stabilization and lack of momentum and all the strictness, your weight would go so low that you would not call this heavy lifting anymore. So there was already many examples of why skills are not very good indicators or standards for strength. It's always part of the skill, as I explained. It's the sort of manipulating your body, the mechanics in the body, and only part is actual strength. But there are other things as well. And one of the biggest is that we are all very, very different. There is no universal criteria for people, and people are naturally good at different type of skills, different movement, different things. So your height, your weight, your body composition, your muscle fiber type, your genetics, your bone thickness, all these things matter and determine in the end the potential of where you can really get really good. So this is a rigged game from the very beginning, and thus you can't compare people's strength with these skills because people are different and the skills consist of a lot of other things than just strength. So if someone can't be strong if he can't or she can't do a front lever or a plunge, like where do you draw the line then? Like, you know, you might say I should be able to do it because I'm only 180 centimeters. What if someone is 190 centimeters? What if somebody is 2 meters and they will never be able to get this plunge or some other skill that you're trying to do? Will you say that they'll never be strong, that they can never truly be strong? Doesn't make any sense. Besides, what kind of strength is that anyway? Like your strength is completely at the mercy of someone else's definition of strength, which is based on what they are good at naturally. So your strength is nothing but just a prison and a really huge limitation. So should you just give up, not train skills at all? No, not necessarily at all. There's a very good way or there's really nothing wrong with training skills. It just should lie on top of really foundational strength training. You must understand that the better is your health, the better your structure in your body, and the stronger you are in really this pure articulation, the better you will also progress with the skills as well. Like you can always train for skills later, always. And if you watch anybody like trainers who are professionals, gymnastics, they spend most of their time really focusing on mobility, strength, core work, all these sort of fundamental things that are there behind those skills. They didn't get the skills by training the skills, just the skills. They did a huge amount of preparatory work, and this was their main training. So if you do accessory work, that should be your main form of training, and the skill training just goes on top of that. Most people, the accessory work is minimal, and when they do accessory work, even that is skill training. So when you're doing accessory work, you're still trying to use the heaviest weights, you're still going for the repetitions, so because you don't really understand at all what it is to train with quality. So the reason why you plateau in this strength is because you have maxed out your skill strength and your structure just didn't come with it. Because as I've been explaining, skill training doesn't build up your structure. If you want to truly build up your structure and muscular strength, then you need to do proper strength training, and skill training is not that. So what is real strength training then? And this is training that's really optimized for the human body. It's not optimized for the skill development. This is what I call universal strength training. And it also applies to every single human being, regardless of their individual genetic makeup, the measurements, whether you're a man, you're a woman, what is your age. So this is universal strength training, and it focuses directly on the body. So we're not focusing on these external things. We're not focusing on this, the numbers or the certain form. We're focusing really on the body, as I said, on those pure articulations, and we are building up the structure. So for example, movement training and yoga are really great ways to strengthen the body. Why? Because we are focusing on the body, and it's not a competition. We are focusing directly on making the body more healthy, more balanced, and this is what makes you stronger actually. When we do weightlifting or calisthenics, we choose the amount of weight that just the minimum amount of weight that gives us the proper stimulus on the muscles that we're trying to work. That is what we do. We're trying to minimize the skill component and maximize the stimulus to the targeted muscles that we're trying to work. And this is also the way we do it, for example, in the Athlete 20XX when we are using weights. Or if we're doing body weight, the same things applies. We don't count the repetitions, we focus on those targeted muscles and use a proper quality form. So in conclusion, skill training, always focusing on external things. You're focusing on the skill progression, the number of the weights, the number of the repetitions. And you're building strength as a side product. It's not the direct result of this training. When you are doing proper strength training, you are focusing directly on the body, because that's the goal what we are trying to achieve with that training. If we want to train for power, for strength, for these things, we want to train those directly, not indirectly, and that's the best way to develop this attribute, these qualities in the body. Focus directly on them. So that's it, guys. As you can see, I have my gloves on. It's really cold in here. The gym is closed for the renovation, so this is the best I can do at the moment. But it doesn't matter. I think this is such an important thing, and I wanted to talk about this, and I hope it really helps you. But I will see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.